I had a black professor of philosophy named Dr. John Eskridge, who pulled me aside one day and asked me very earnestly, why are you reaching out to people who don't care anything about you, like Peter Gabriel, when you have people here who do care about you? So I invited him to Peter Gabriel's concert. I bought tickets. It was a security tour. And I remember that what he liked best was the song Kiss of Life. You see, I agree with Greta Thunberg that the most important cause is the cause of life. It's not that people don't fall in pursuing the cause of life, but the measurement isn't fixed, that their value was measured by that they fell or how they fell. The value is measured by how they live and how well they live in the cause of life, whether they fall or not. It's a slight inflected difference. Now, a lot of black people are very American. They're very patriotic, eager to serve, defensive of their rights and privileges. But how did they get that way? I'll tell you how they got that way. They were picked on by a really mean, big, terrible bigot who humiliated them and beat them up. And there was nothing they could do to defend themselves. And they sat there on the park bench in that state of defeat and humiliation when a liberal white person who they'd never seen before and thought only well of them said good morning, and they got up and beat his brains in and tortured him. When they were finished, they lied about what they did. They told themselves he had it coming because he's one of them. And once they got fixed, they never did it, and they didn't do it, and he deserved it, and it wasn't the wrong person. They were welcomed by the bigot to join him. And that's how they became Americans, by learning to lie and pick on innocent people. And there are quite a few of them. And they were instrumental in covering up for, well, I showed the evidence for what I found this morning to an elderly woman who was shocked she'd never seen it before. And she was just rolling her eyes with disbelief when she heard that Pitt and Seattle had both arrested me, denying the evidence says what it so obviously says, and called me a paranoid schizophrenic for trying to get help. And how did that happen? Well, black people were very busy pronouncing African consciousness on behalf of furious Zionist museum thieves and naming German aristocrats honorary the African warriors for over a game of pussy ball. And the secret isn't that it's a secret. Everybody knows that that's true, who's ever seen the evidence. Like the new woman this morning who's seen some of the evidence. She knows I'm right. Because it's stupid not to look at the evidence and draw your conclusions from that. You're going to draw the conclusions from Pitt and Seattle, man. That's really brilliant. So, the secret is how they did it was what the secret is. That's what keeps it secret. Was it that Mandela was involved, which makes the South Africa's petition against Israel a little late in the game, don't you think? Well, I knew a man who said to me, he was a white man, he said to me he used to laugh that Fripp got his students to pay him to do his farm work for him. And such an august presence after all. And he told me, if you try to help blacks, they will only turn on you. I'd like to finish that sentence. But first I want to describe the situation that I studied about Darfur. Many years ago, so about 40 years ago, I was interested and I used to watch seminars, but although they were absolutely fascinating and they were appeals for help, they were very ill attended. And surprise, surprise, it was the Black coalition at the University of Pittsburgh that didn't want me interfering. So they wanted to poach me as a special object to make money. And then when I get injury pay, turn it over to them. They poisoned me in the mouth. And I have Parkinson's, not from them specifically, from their alliance, you see. Because the way that you finish the sentence is, well, let's look at Darfur rationally. I read a piece this morning. I'm not talking about Hollywood Darfur. I'm talking about political Darfur, because they could use some assistance. I was reading John Kennedy's essay on the education of politicians. Now, John Kennedy's book, Strategy for Peace, in 1959, reads almost like Jabberwocky. It's an Alice in Wonderland. Reason is that he's lucid and well-researched and articulate on every field that he addresses, which is every field that's relevant to American foreign policy in 1959. And he identifies the falsehoods and deceptions of the Republican opposition very carefully. So what's this doing in politics, right? Because politics are not supposed to be an intellectual. Politics is the triumph of the bigot. And the bigot says, you want to go help Africa? Well, liberal, after you. And then, so so what's rational about Darfur and Congo is that there are people in distress, and there are organizations that are designed to facilitate people in distress, and there are organizations that are designed to capitalize on people in distress. But the Green Party and the African Alliance that calls itself an African Alliance when it's actually doing the work of white bigots is not keen to take on the forces that capitalize on people in distress, the armaments manufacturers. So they go after the people who they say are ineffectual, liberal, weak, and ineffectual do-wellers, and the do-wellers go out and interfere. So they're contemptuous. Just give us the money, and we'll help the people who straighten things out, you might say. So when you look at the body politic, there are a lot of people who, they're not angels, they're not capable, but they're looking for better leadership, okay? So you have a choice on some levels between negligence and responsibility. The problem with negligence is that it's cast in the light of good negligence, friendly negligence. We'd like to be able to help you. And then there's negative responsibility. We're going to go out and straighten things out, right? So you'd almost rather have this benign, benevolent negligence than the negative responsibility of being straightened out by the people who capitalize on those who are suffering. And somehow you have to turn it around so that you have benevolent responsibility that's accepted. I mean, a lot of people don't want any benevolent responsibility because they've seen it as two-faced and backstabbing. But ideally, you would have benevolent responsibility that was accepted. And negligence would be put into a somewhat malign light. And the notion that the negligence is inherent in the species of do-wellers is one of the things that makes people say, I'm not going to take responsibility for that, because as the bigots say, if you try to help black people, they will only turn on you. Now, who beat the hell out of me was Michael Reagan. But who poisoned me in the mouth was the black loyalists of at least the white people were behind the actual mouth poison. They were both black and white people. But they were actually the people who go along with white bigots. So black people only turn on you, finish the sentence. If you try to help black people, they will only turn on you because the white bigot will tell them and pay them to turn on you. See how it works? So with they foreclosed on my interest in helping them. But I can try to teach them what's going on so they do a better job of enlisting people. Because right now it's just a horrible backstab. They have these gurus of meditate. The white bigot is a mystic. The white bigot mystic has sex trafficking syndicates so he can dole out ladle to the good kind. And like Obama poached with me, with Maduri Goto, the sacred, the African warrior of Tojo, LAPD, for Reagan, for Hitler Reagan, who was the honorary, the black man in their mystical framework of Ringo Starr. So the guru of Menete has a Zionist or a Jewish wife, probably named Gail, and he teaches the readily to receive black spinner beanie. And he untoos for them that when they see white people looking away, it's a whole sociological framework of organized bigotry that's subconscious. And they go, wow, that's what I always suspected. That's what I always suspected. Another one was Frank Herbert. He was a bigot Mysterian of the white world, and undoing thusly for the well-receiving spinner beanies. When time came to neglect the script that shows that AIDS was man-made, Frank Herbert put out the White Plague. Aha! So, and he had this thing called Soul Catcher, which was about a black man who sacrificed a white, whose name is what? Cat Suck. Okay, so Cat Suck goes out to sacrifice the white. And this is the unto witch doctor of the white bigot to the black spinner beanies, like Cornel West, who grace the hear with their deaf horns. That's what I always thought would be best. So, and then now there's this thing, this grace race. Everybody's in a grace race to do well by the magic computer of TikTok that home invades you, right? And Richard Starkey's femme fatale, Yoko Ono, is the femme fatale with 1,000 faces. You see, it's a feedback loop into where they appraise you, whether they can traffic you, whether they can dismiss you as someone who's too easily seduced, depict you maliciously as a sexual stereotype, a lurid type. They do all these, clicky things because the white bigot Mysterian has told them he can read minds. Never mind that they implanted something for rapid eye movement to make you twitch when like Zayla getting shock treatment, that's rapid eye movement. And the spinner meetings go, that's what I always thought. That's what I always thought. So, the quote sending is something of a rejoinder, Who would poison you in the mouth? Well, the people working for the white bigots are who. But I thought they were punishing the white, and punishing the liberal sacrifice so they can be Americans, man. And they're going to help Congo. They're going to straighten things out. Wow. So if you look at the people behind us when Mandela, Václav Havel, and Lenin, which brings me to something that really does need to be done for the people of Palestine. The people in Eastern Europe and the intellectuals, even I, derived a good deal of morale from the witness that Mandela bore. I'm not saying anything bad about what he was trying to do. on the level that it was presented, or Václav Havel for that matter. Both of them had an intellectual heritage that allowed them to keep sane in prison. The Palestinians that are going into Israeli prisons are nowhere near as well equipped. I mean, obviously, Islam does a great deal to protect them, but they need an intellectual thesis that embraces life. Now, I'm not saying dismisses their Islamic faith, but one that embraces life enough that they don't go insane under the grueling terrors of Israeli prisons. We need to do something to help. It is paramount that we help develop a psychology for the survival of the dignity of the prisoners being tortured in Zionist prisons. And finally, all of this is because of those dang Zionists. It has nothing to do with Jewishness. There's plenty of beautiful, wonderful Jewish people around, but they're not in America. They've grown increasingly psychotic with the war machine. The way that the Zionists became Americans is just the same way that the blacks did, only they did it consciously. The blacks were sort of still in the victim seat, and that's one of the things that gives black racism its character. Black racism's character is grounded in actual victimization. America was on the side of the Jews. We were against genocide in World War II. It will pay you to remember that, Netanyahu.